It's cold and rainy, and we're about to tackle the Overland Track, which is one of the more exciting things you can do standing up.
What are we expecting to achieve in this
Survival.
survival? Alright.
That's what we need. What we can hope for.
You're very short for words all of a sudden, Brett.
Let's go!
Brett fills out important paperwork before departure, but has trouble remembering his address, so he copies somebody else's. Oh, what a glorious afternoon for a walk in the woods. The rain has passed and the sun is out in all its splendour. As you can see, the path is wide and the base is firm. And even the fallen trees have been removed. What could possibly go wrong?
Weather we're having.
Mud, slush, and tangled vegetation. That answers my question. It is now 4 o'clock, and at last we arrive at Echo Point Hut, and abandon any thoughts of pushing on to Narcissus Hut. Echo Point Hut is one of the oldest huts on the Overland Track, but proves to be sufficient for Brett's modesty. He is such a princess. The hut is basic but adequate, although the cracks in the walls do let in the cold and the native rats. That is our new hiking buddy Michael, who also got in through the cracks. The hut is heated by a coal-burning stove. Fortunately for the environment, Parks Tasmania left barely enough coal to prevent us from freezing to death. To get to Echo Point, we have skirted the western shore of Lake Sinclair. Due to the thickness of the vegetation, we only catch rare glimpses of the lake. This jetty at Echo Point is an optional stop for the ferry that operates between Cynthia Bay and Narcissus Hut. You must signal the ferry if required. Apparently, dropping your pants and exposing your bottom is not recommended. The next morning, the weather has improved slightly, but the state of the path makes for slow going. Even where there is a boardwalk, care must be taken to step on the chicken wire spread over the surface. In these damp conditions, the boards become very slippery, and one false step could end in disaster, as Michael found out yesterday when he slipped and fell into a stream. We're not always lucky enough to have a boardwalk, and must take things as they come. At the head of Lake Sinclair, the tall timber thins out and gives way to swampy grassland. The boardwalk is now a canal. It wasn't until much later that Michael mentioned that he was wearing waterproof socks and was enjoying them very much. It was a nice change to be above the water than in it. Late on the second day, we arrive at Windy Ridge Hut. The hut is nestled in a close, heavily wooded valley surrounded by snow-capped peaks. It is here that the first traces of snow are found. Well, more like gobs of ice. Windy Ridge Hut is modern and spacious, but does not have the rustic charm of Echo Point Hut. But it also does not have rats. As there were no other hikers, we set up camp in the common area to take advantage of the warmth created by the gas heater. The heater is controlled by a timer, so once we had retired, nobody wanted to get out of their sleeping bag to turn it back on. Very clever.
First bit of snow. Yeah. Here we go. Ooh, ice on the water. Ooh, no ice. Boots are already wet, so it doesn't really matter. called again?
Duquesne.
Duquesne Hut. Good. Let's have lunch. Quite Spartan, isn't it? Bit of a notice board there about it all. That was built by this guy. Is that going to focus? Paddy Harnett. Oh, 1910. He started building this historic hut. They used as emergencies, this hut. That's where we had lunch. Salami and cheese. A bit of chocolate. Yeah. Couple of bunks there, they'd be rough old sleeping on them, wouldn't they? Yes, so that is this hut.
The morning of day 4 finds us at Kia Ora Hut. Once again we are surrounded by peaks topped with snow. Today we will cross Pelion Pass, and from reports this will be our first taste of snow conditions. There in the distance is Mount Pelion East. We have only just left Kia Ora Hut and already we are getting a feel for walking in snow. The snow can be slippery and there are unseen voids beneath the seemingly solid surface, so it is prudent to tread cautiously. We begin to wonder if it was a wise decision not to bring snowshoes. At this point we are within striking distance of Pelion Gap, which sits at just over 1100 metres in altitude. Just off to the west is Mount Doris. Not a particularly inspiring name, but fortunately quite scenic. To the south is Mount Olympus, although unseen at the time, stood silently above us at Echo Point Hut. And over there is the impressive nipple of Mount Pelion East. Here you are given an avatar-like experience as to what it is like to be an unco on ice. At great personal risk, Brett is filming as he flounders about on the snow. Fortunately, he gets the hang of it and ponces precariously pursuant to proclaim his prestigious prize. He got to the pass.
He's not too worried about us, is he? Mr. Wombat. Mr. Wombat.
This is New Pelion Hut, which is much better than Old Pelion Hut. Hello Brett, how are you today?
Are you going to explain yourself?
My shoes exploded or separated. It lost its sole, or maybe sold its sole.
Ah, so.
Yeah, our sole. And so I just had to try and strap it back on again. Luckily, these gaiter straps, you know, just holding on a little bit here and a bit of string here, and I'll come up with a better string theory tomorrow to fix it.
Where are we?
We're at the Pelion Hut.
In the middle of the Overland Track, Tasmania, the middle of winter.
Smack bang in the middle of the Overland Track.
Just been hiking through snow for about 3 hours.
So I can't turn back,
It's
really.
funny.
You've got to go forward.
It's funny because it's not my foot, not my shoe. Yeah.
All right.
Hilarious.
This is Barn Bluff. And this is Mount Oakley, with Barn Bluff in the distance. Pine Forest Moor is an expanse of tussock grass on an exposed ridge at an altitude of over 1,000 metres, looking to the west from Pine Forest Moor. And looking to the south we have a view of the other side of Mount Oakley, as seen from New Pelion Hut. This is Lake Windermere, from which Windermere Hut gets its name. Once again we have the majestic Barn Bluff, which has dominated the scenery for the past few days.
close to Waterfall Hut, up from Windermere. Yeah. Very bleak old day, isn't it? Little Barnes Bluff again. See if I'm panning too fast.
Ah, the tranquility. We have arrived at Waterfall Valley Hut, which snuggles in the protection of, you guessed it, Waterfall Valley. Waterfall Valley Hut has an older sister, and for want of a better name is called Old Waterfall Valley Hut. If you look closely, you may see the welcome mat put out for the local wildlife. This, ladies and gentlemen, is not a rat. It is a giant mouse. No, it's not. It's a Bennett's or red-necked wallaby. And it's very hungry, and luckily it doesn't eat meat or chocolate. And of course we have Wombatus ursinus, better known as the common or bare-nosed wombat, not to be confused with the hairy-nosed wombat. How do you tell the difference, I hear you ask? It's pretty obvious, I would have thought. I know, another shot of Barn Bluff. I promise, this is the second last one. It does have a nice effect through the glass. And here we peek inside Waterfall Valley Hut. That is the exit, although I think we came in that way. That's another window. Oh, that's the heater, which gets the temperature up to close to 0, and makes your socks less damp. Here is the most important part of the hut. It is here that we spend about 12 hours out of every day. And it is where we are the driest and warmest every day. Here are the hut rules, such as what not to feed the uninvited guests. Here is the drying room, which of course is almost an oxymoron. Today was a short hike, so with some time to spare I took the opportunity to look around. Please indulge me for a minute or two. You may have noticed a blood-red hue to the water. This is due to tannin leached from certain trees. I like to imagine it's from another source. Try an internet search for the name Alexander Pierce. This, I promise, is the last shot of Barn Bluff. I'll give you some inspiring music to enhance the experience. This is the southern face of Cradle Mountain. The next morning it is snowing. This is good and bad. Snow means it's not raining. That's good. Snow means it's cold. That's bad.
A good breakfast with action shot, powdered milk, my recipe, and some rolled oats. A good old multi-fuel stove. Have a look at Michael's stove. Look at that one, mate. That's a jet, that thing.
Well, that's space-age technology, isn't it, really?
Like I said, you can't cook on it. It just heats things up very quickly. Got blue skies.
Blue skies.
This morning.
Yeah.
I go for a swim in that creek down the road a little bit. You think that's a good idea?
You can have a solo swim, Brett.
Yes, maybe not.
The overnight snow has transformed the landscape since I was here yesterday. Don't worry, Brett hasn't been abducted by aliens. This is an emergency shelter. And by golly, would only ever use this place in an emergency. Not long after we reached Scott Kilvert Hut, the snow began falling again in earnest. It was cold, and we were pleased to see a wood-fired stove and plenty of wood. But the only axe we could find was locked in a cage. Another of the privations of hiking in parks is the distance required to travel to answer the call of nature. Here I am returning to Scott Kilvert Hut early in the morning. In the morning, Brett and I set off and leave our tracks on a landscape of freshly fallen snow.
Can't buy this kind of weather. Smart comment. I make one smart comment, I got punished immediately.
See, she's bloody alright.
Wombats were scarce on the Overland Track, except at the Cradle Mountain car park. I don't usually give unpaid endorsements, so I'll say nothing except Launceston hosts a fine football team.